But we also want to be able to do returns from methods, and they call them in the book fruitful returns, because they're returning a value. So that's what we're learning about this time. So it's building on our existing knowledge. And so for this, again, the return values, so fruitful methods return a value. And the trick is, depending upon what you're returning, you will change the void in the method declaration to match the value type. So if you're returning an integer, you're going to turn it to an integer. And if you're returning a double, then you're going to return a double. So normally our statements say public, static, and usually this would say void. And this is just one method. This is a cost method. I didn't put the main one in this one. But I have, for this, cost is going to be a double because the integer for the number, we're receiving some parameters, the number of that someone wants. And then the price is a double because, again, this is a floating point. And then inside is the code that's going to execute. So basically, I have a new variable called result, and it is a double, and it's going to be equal to the number that people want times the price of the item. And then we're just going to do a return of the result. So normally we would have done a print statement here, but now we're working on returns and sending this value back up to the calling method. So if someone sent down 4, and if they sent down a price of 2, so if num is 4 and price is 2, we would put that in here. We'd say 4 times 2, and so we want to see what we think the return would be. And so we would multiply those two together, and I anticipate it would be 8. So let me click, and that's what we're saying here. And then the same instance, if someone sent down in a different call, they sent 10 down for the first position for num, and they sent down 7 for the price, then you'd multiply 7 times 10, and you'd get 70. So let's look at another. Okay, we're going to try another one. And in this one, we actually have the main method here. And we have the void, and we have an integer x, which is equal to a call to the product method. And we're setting down variables 3 and 2. And integer y is equal to the product method again. This time we're setting different numbers down to the parameters. We're setting 7 and 8 down. So 3 would become number 1 and 2 would become number 2. So let's see what would happen with that. So we would go in this method, the product method, instead of saying void, we've changed this now to say int because we're going to send an integer back up. So int answer is equal to num1 times num2. So if num1 is 3 and num2 is 2, so 3 times 2, that should give us 6. So with the return value should be returning back up there a 6. That's what I have here, and we'll check this in NetBeans to make sure, but we're thinking ahead of time about what we're doing. And this one, if we sent 7 to the num1 parameter and 8 to the num2 parameter, we anticipate 7 times 8 should give us, if we return answer, should give us 56. And it does. So we're going to check it out in NetBeans, but the big takeaway to remember is when you do a method with a return value, you have to make sure you change the void to either be int or to be double, depending upon what information you're sending back. Those are the two we're working on right now. And other than that, it works very similarly to what you've already been doing with your methods. The difference is normally we have been doing print lines, and instead we're going to do a return. So we're going to see how that goes. Our book talks about fruitful returns, and that's when we have return values that actually send information back up to the main method or to another method that called them. So we had done a return before where it just stopped the program, which it's important to know how to do that, but sometimes we want to return an actual value. So I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to take the code. We had this code right here that passed parameters, so I'm going to just run the code. And it basically printed out the product of 3 and 2 equals 6. The product of 7 and 8 equals 56. So I'm going to turn this code, I'm going to make it a little bit different so that it does a return value instead of a print line statement. So I'm actually going to delete the print line statement because I do not need that anymore. And I'm going to put in a return right now. And so I'm going to return answer. And with a semicolon. Now you're seeing that it's underlined, it's giving me clearly an error message. And that's because an important thing to notate is when you're doing a return value, void in our method names means that you're not returning anything and everything's going to stay within that method. So you can send things, you can call other methods through parameters, but you're not doing any return values. If you need to do a return or you want to do a return, instead of void, you're going to put the type of variable it is. So I'm going to call this integer. And so in this, so notice the error message went away now. So now I'm going to return the answer. And if I hit run for this code now, it went successfully. But you don't know what happened. And that's because I call this, but I didn't set it equal to another variable. So you have no way of knowing that this is sending the information back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this code a little bit. I'm going to make a new integer. And I'm going to set x equal to, and I'm going to do this one, I'm going to make this one y equal to, and then I am going to system out println x, and I'm just going to copy this code. And I'm going to print line y. So we're going to run it again. So all I did now was I just set it equal to a variable. So I gave each variable, I just did x and y for simplicity's sake. So let's run the code now. And so now it prints 6 and 6 up, and I know why. I'm like, I did not change this to y. So let's run it again. So now it says 6, and so we know 3 times 2, if I pop it down here, 3 times 2 is 6, and 7 times 8 is definitely 56. So I didn't have any, I should probably add some words to the print line to make more sense, but I really just wanted to show you how a return works, so you can see how it works. And you could use, so when you get more complicated code, you might end up using the return value somewhere else in your code. You might not want to just print it out on the screen right away. And this is a helpful way to get that information.